So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining this fourth of 4 sessions about professional development, supporting the project and change profession in healthcare, working with the Association for Project Management. And I'm delighted to have Sophie Lawrence come back for the last of this series. She's battling through today because she's not feeling so great. So thank you so much for making the effort to be here today. We also have Helen Donaghy from the Business Services Authority, who is going to tell us a little bit about her experience of going through the chartership process. I've been through it as well and coached some other people through it. So there's some opportunities to ask questions and for us to tell you a little bit more about what it's like in practice. We're also going to talk a little bit about the next level beyond chartership, which is fellowship. I'm also a fellow of the Association for Project Management, so you can hear a little bit more about what that entails as well. So without further ado, if I can hand you over to Sophie Lawrence, who is going to tell us a little bit about the next level of professional development and what that entails. Thank you, Sophie.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you for having me once again. I'm just going to quickly share my screen and pull up that presentation for you. So I'm Sophie Lawrence. I'm Partnership Development Manager. I look after public sector and charity accounts here for the APM. And I will just go over a little bit of who the APM are, just for those in the room that aren't familiar. I do hope that most of you are, but we are essentially a membership organisation. We've been working in this space for 50 years. We celebrated our 50th anniversary last year. And we are a registered education charity. So the work that we do and the activities that we carry out are quite broad, but obviously anything profit-wise that we do generate does go back into developing the sector and investing in research, events, etc., that will benefit the community. We like to share best practice and lead the debate. We're very keen to challenge the status quo in order to progress the sector. And like I said, although we are a membership body fundamentally, we do have other facets to the work that we do. And we are the only chartered organisation for the project profession. So we're the only place that you can come to become a chartered project professional. We obtained a chartership about 6 years ago. So just to give you an overview of the scale of the organisation as we are today, we've over 40,000 individual members. We work with approximately 450 corporate partners, so that's that business-to-business relationship that we have with the HPCA. We've to date chartered over 3,000 people internationally. It is an internationally recognised chartership. And on average, we're awarding 18,000 different qualifications every year. Our vibrant and passionate community of volunteers and ambassadors, along with ourselves, are putting together over 200 different CPD events each year. So they could be in-person conference style events, but there will also be other CPD activities that we have available, either podcasts, things that we've recorded for YouTube, etc., as well as research pieces that we've commissioned. And like I said, we have got a vibrant community of over 500 different volunteers across the country, working within our branches and our specific interest groups as well. So to give you an idea of the community that you are tapping into when you become involved with the APM and the benefits of that. So what is the chartered standard? So like I said, we after many years of hard work were awarded the chartered standard about 6 years ago. So this is setting a professional benchmark that demonstrates the attainment of a defined level of technical knowledge and professional practice and ethical behaviour. I think we're all very familiar, household name in terms of chartered engineers, chartered accountants, etc. But now we have a chartered project professional register as well. So we're really keen to promote this within the sector because it is relatively new. We want to raise the standard of the project profession and encourage the public's perception of project awareness as project management as well. So that's that benchmark that has been set and awarded by the Crown. It's important that we do have a recognised benchmark and standard of professionalism, and we do want to raise that profile and the value of project management as a first choice profession. We know historically people have found themselves in project management roles. It wasn't necessarily an intentional career choice. These days it very much is. And we want to develop that group of assured professionals to lead the delivery of projects that are going on up and down the country in all different types of sectors. It's important to point out that we are a pan-sector organisation. Through that, that group of assured professionals, we also have that the register of chartered individuals that you can choose not to be added to, but it is obviously a credit to you if you are listed on that register as well. And you do gain the post-nominals as well if you do obtain chartership, which obviously helps to raise your personal profile and credibility within amongst your peers as well. So in terms of where it sits along the other offerings that we have a suite of education and qualifications that are internationally recognised, something for everybody, starting from our fundamentals at the top of the screen there for your entry-level early career individuals, all the way through your career journey through to chartership, and that is the pinnacle, that's the cherry on the top, if you will, to demonstrate your knowledge and attainment of experience and depth of understanding of the sector. These fit alongside our individual memberships, which are separate and different. So you don't have to be a member to take any of our qualifications, and you don't have to be a member to become chartered, although we would suggest that perhaps if you're at that level in your career, why wouldn't you be a member of the professional body? But you can see there what type of membership level you might be looking at the various stages in your career, and that's why we're going to be discussing towards the end of this presentation a bit more about the fellowship member and how you become a fellow. So just so you can have that sort of overall overarching understanding of how they fit together. So when is a good time for you? How are you ready basically for chartership? And this is often the first question that amongst the shroud of mystery around chartership is, is now the right time? Is it for me? Am I ready? And I would like to point out that there are a number of resources on our website that are open to anybody. You don't have to be a member or corporate partner to access these. So the first place I would direct you to is our matrix tool that will help you to ascertain whether or not the projects that you have been working on during your career have the breadth and complexity that is needed to demonstrate the competencies required for chartership. So you do need to be actively working within projects to be considered to become chartered. You do need to have that track record of delivering projects, programs or portfolios, or a key control for or enabling function. These projects and programs or portfolios need to exhibit characteristics, can't say that today, of complexity. So they do need to be what I would describe as those nice meaty projects with that variety and breadth and depth of complexity. You're looking to use those projects to demonstrate 12 competencies overall. So you need up to 4 nice meaty projects to demonstrate those competencies. So with the breadth of projects that you've been involved in, you are going to be demonstrating 7 mandatory and 5 elective competencies, and demonstrating that you have the advanced technical knowledge and are able to confidently evaluate and analyse the theory of current practices and methods. And you're also going to be demonstrating your commitment to continuous professional development. CPD is something that you will hear the APM talking a great deal about. It is really important that you have a continuous professional development and a log of the time that you are spending. The chartership, that's 35 hours a year. And you're also going to commit to the ethical way of working that the APM require to obtain chartership. So you will need to demonstrate your technical knowledge, your professional practice. Those things will also need to cover off the points here. That this has come out of the guidance that is on the website as well. So we have, when I go back to the tools available, there are the matrix tool, there's guidance notes, there's a series of webinars that you are able to book places on that cover my readiness, preparing my written application and preparing for interview. And they're on a rolling cycle, so they're usually on every month. So I think that kind of summarises the resources available. We have recently had a LinkedIn webinar as well on the light touch update that we've just had to Chartership, which goes live in September. And we have a specific assessment cycle each month. There's a specific cut-off date for you to submit your written application. We don't have one throughout the summer through August. So next month in September is the first of the new light touch updates. And also you'll need to show that CPD log, those 35 hours of continuous professional development. So here we have got a handy slide to list the different resources and tools that are on the website. It is within that Chartership or the ChPP, which are the post-nominals that you're getting with Chartership, section of the website. So you've got that matrix tool. The frequently asked questions area is really helpful. The guidelines, etc. I would also point out that if you are an individual member, you have got the option within that membership to request a mentor, and you can have a mentor, as many mentors as you like on all different types of areas of your career development. But we are finding that a great number of people are using that mentoring program to support them in their chartership journey. Like Jo mentioned, she has mentored others, and it will be through these sorts of programs that we are able to link individuals up with other volunteers that have offered their time to support in that journey. It's great if there are people within your organisation that you can lean on or ask for guidance. But for those that would like somebody with that, beyond their organisation walls, the APM's membership and mentoring program is a really good place to request that. And there is also a specific e-learning module as well for members on Chartership. So there are 3 routes to Chartership, and this is because we're acknowledging prior learning for some of those other routes. So route 3 is by far our most popular and most commonly accessed route to Chartership, which is our experiential route, which does not require that you have any prior learning or recognised assessments. I've listed on there the current fees for Chartership. Obviously, there is a cost involved, and that is split into 2 sections. There's one payment made when you submit your written application, and another payment made when you secure your interview date. So you know that's how that works. And then going forward, there will be an annual registration fee to maintain your chartership, and you would be required to provide your CPD log as well for that continuous attainment of your chartership. So that just kind of summarises that. But route 1 is for those that have got a recognised assessment for their technical knowledge alone. Route 2 is the quickest route because we are recognising prior learning for technical knowledge and professional practice. Like I said, route 3 is for those that don't have any prior learning but have a wealth of experience and knowledge, and you're going to be applying through your experiential attainment. So in a little bit more detail, the recognised assessments are awarded to organisations that approach us at the APM to have their programmes recognised. So they will go through a process of having the content of those programmes submitted to us, and we'll measure those against our requirements for chartership. So it's not a case of, these are the only places that we will recognise those qualifications. It's just that those are the organisations that have approached us to have that qualification recognised. So if you do have any connections with an organisation where you've obtained a qualification that isn't listed, by all means do suggest to them that perhaps they let us know, and we can look through that programme and see if we can also recognise that particular qualification. So for Route 1 as it stands, and because of that process, this is a list that's constantly changing. We are often approached by different educational bodies and private sector organisations to have their programmes recognised. So as it stands at the moment, Route 1 is the list on the left-hand side, and Route 2 is the list on the right-hand side. So if you're scanning through that and you recognise something that you have obtained previously, then that will determine which route you are able to take to chartership. But like I said, this is always changing, and we are more than happy to add more to the list if they are appropriate. I have included the slides so that you can come back to this at another time at your leisure. So for Route 1, we are recognising that technical knowledge. So as a result, the interview section will be shorter. So the written stage 1 is completely the same for Route 3, but the interview stage will be shorter. So we are still looking for an overview, a written submission of up to 4 projects within the 5 years history. If those projects are prior to the 5 years, you will also need to provide a currency statement explaining how your work is up to date and you're actively involved in the profession to date. You are then also going to evidence against 12 competencies, 7 mandatory and 5 elective, and each of those competencies need to tick off a minimum of 4 criteria. So we're looking for about 250 words per competence in that written piece, and this is the section that is time consuming. There's no way of sugarcoating that. You do need to have some capacity to spend the time compiling this evidence and selecting those projects, and the matrix tool is really helpful for you to gauge which are the best projects that you've been directly involved in that are going to demonstrate the competencies required. You're also going to, if you're going down Route 1, going to supply us with the evidence of your recognised assessment, the certificate, etc., that you've previously been awarded, and you're going to provide a professionally active statement. Like I said, if those examples are more than 5 years old, and your declaration of an up-to-date CPD log. At this stage, it will be, you won't need to supply it, but we could ask for it at any stage. And then obviously that you have signed and confirmed that you are willing and understand that you will abide by the APM's Code of Professional Conduct. For all of the different routes, you will also need 2 proposers that may be current or previous colleagues, etc., professional connections that can propose or support your application. So once you've submitted that in alignment with those cut-off dates that I've mentioned, that will all be assessed. The team at in the chartership department are very helpful in that they will, and approachable, I should mention as well, that they will come back to you if they look over your application and they feel that you do need to add in or give more detail in some aspects before it goes before the panel. So we're not looking to catch anybody out. We are we're rooting for you. We want you to be successful. So they will give you a little heads up if they think it needs a little bit more time spending on it before it goes before the panel. And once the panel have agreed that you have completed and met the criteria for stage 1, we would then be in touch with you to book in your interview stage. And these are all hosted virtually. There's no intent at this stage to revert back to in-person interviews. So these are going to be virtual Teams-based interviews. And for stage 1, because we have already acknowledged your prior learning for technical knowledge, it's a 1-hour interview. And they'll just dive a little bit deeper into your written overviews of your projects and some of those competence areas that you've listed as well. So that is the process for route 1. For route 2, it's a little bit shorter because we are, like I said, acknowledging prior learning for technical knowledge and professional practice. So you really are just submitting your CPD log, your intentions in regards to your CPD, your reflections. Ideally you'll have some guidelines as to where you might want to be developing your knowledge further going forward, and then the evidence of your recognised assessment as well. Again, you've got your proposers, and you've read and understood the professional conduct piece as well. And so then you've got a 30 minutes interview for this route 2, just to really discuss in a bit more detail your CPD intentions. Route 3, like I said, is the most commonly taken route. It doesn't matter which route you take, it's just whichever one's the best fit for you. So we are by far seeing more individuals take the route 3, the experiential route. So again, it's that written submission of up to 4 projects. You're covering off 12 competencies, 7 mandatory and 5 elective, with that CPD statement, the confirmation that you've read and understood and will abide by the APM's Code of Professional Conduct, and your 2 proposers. And for this route, it is a 2-hour virtual face-to-face interview with 2 assessors. And again, they are going to be looking to dive a bit deeper into the information that you've provided in the written application. But they are also going to be needing to cover off some of the technical questions as well. This is quite a fast-paced interview. My understanding is that it is a number of questions that need to be covered off in that time. So it is a quick fire, is the term that I want to use. So just be prepared for that. It is worth spending some time discussing with those that have perhaps been through it, just so you know what to expect for that process. And there is also time in that 2 hours for you to spend a few minutes adding any other additional information you feel is relevant to that as well. From conversations that I've had in the past, as a ballpark indicator, it's been suggested that your written application is around 30 to 40 hours to complete. Obviously, that is very much dependent on individuals, but just as a guide of the commitment that, or the capacity that's required for that written piece. And obviously then you've got that 2-hour virtual interview, which can be booked at a convenient time for yourself. So our Light Touch update has aligned the chartership process with the 3rd edition of the competence framework. So we've got 2 new competencies embedded into that, but by having a little bit of a reshape here, we have got an this or that option for the mandatory competencies, which are listed on the left. So you have a little bit more flexibility there. And then there's the list of the 16, where you're going to select 5 competencies on the right-hand side. We're really hoping that this is going to make it more inclusive for those that are managing portfolios, etc., that perhaps in the past would have found it difficult to demonstrate specific mandatory areas. So we're hoping there's a little bit more flexibility, and this therefore makes it a bit more inclusive for individuals in the project world. So yeah, so you've got that and/or option, and then your 5 to select from that list. And this again is all in the guidance notes that are available through the chartership section on the website. So to round that up, you are going to read the guidelines. You're going to have a look at the matrix tool and really think about which projects you want to demonstrate your competencies against. Complete and submit the online application. It is an online application that you can build over a period of time. It will save as you go, I believe, but it's on that platform saved for you, so you can dip in and out of it when you have the time. What else was I going to add to that? On average, we know that people are taking up to 6 months to compile that application because of the commitment required and the hours that it takes. So if you want to sort of bear that in mind with your planning, there's not a timed window that you start it at this point, and you must have it submitted by a certain date. It can sit there and be slowly added to over a number of months if that's how it's going to fit for you. That written submission is then assessed. You will then be contacted to book your interview, and the outcomes of that goes before a panel. And once you are awarded, a notice is sent to you and all the other applicants that have submitted on that cycle at the same time. So you'll hear about that at a similar time to others in that cycle, and at that point you'll be it will be confirmed with you whether or not you'd like to be added to the chartered register, and you will have gained the post nominals. And going forward, you are going to keep up to date your CPD log, which will be subject to random sampling. So I think at this point we were just going to touch on, Jo was going to talk about how this relates to your sector within the health sector and how it's beneficial and relatable from a context piece, and then we're going to go into a little bit more detail from Helen's experience and round up with fellowship details too. So I'm going to hand back over to Jo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great, Sophie. Thank you so much for that information. That's really helpful. I just thought it was useful looking at this particular one and how it relates to the work of the HPCA and what we're doing to develop the project profession in healthcare. So you may be familiar, or some of you might not be, with the capability framework we've developed for the NHS. Let me just quickly kind of give you a quick show of that. You'll get a link afterwards, those of you that work in the healthcare sector. So in terms of the capability framework, this is based on the government, the Infrastructure and Projects Authority standards for project delivery in the public sector. They have a framework for civil service organisations, and we can give you the link to that as well if you work for a civil service-based organisation. But we adapted it for the NHS so that we would have then consistent standards. And the government framework and ours is also based on the IPA standards, but it's about how we apply it in practice in this sector. So if you go into the framework, there are a number of different areas, but one of the things is around competencies. I won't bother with that because you can look at that yourselves, but it then links to career pathways, and the career pathways then links to roles within the healthcare sector and the bands that are appropriate within the NHS. So that would give you then insights into, if you were looking to develop yourself and your role, and you were looking at the role you're in currently and wanted to move up to the next level, you can then click on each of these elements and look to see what the qualification requirements are, as well as the levels of competency that we would be looking for in terms of organisational role delivery. If I go back briefly to this, we've also got the skills levels. So government has looked at not just qualifications, but accreditation, and the chartership attainment is part of that accreditation level. So government has 4 levels of accreditation, and these link to the International Project Management Association levels, which also the APM qualifications are aligned to. So the IPMA is a global standard of professional accreditation, and the government ones and ours also aligned to that. So from a foundation level, practitioner, senior practitioner, and master practitioner level, it looks at both your qualifications, your accreditation, and experience in practice. We will do a session sort of separately on this, but colleagues from some organisations, so BSA and from Health Research Authority, have been going through the government process to go through the accreditation, and we'll be looking to test that out and potentially roll that out. But to help you with your career development, you can have a look at this and say, where are you now? What are the things that you might want to build in terms of more experience, in terms of competencies, but also in terms of accredited training? And that can then help you look at your next career pathway and where you want to go and where you want to move onwards or upwards or into a different kind of role. So that's a really useful guide from a very practical point of view that can then link in your professional development through something like chartership with roles and career pathways within the healthcare sector. So I'm mindful of the time. We don't have too much time to spend on this, but you can have a good look at this later if you want to. What I would like to do is to bring in Helen, and Helen, if Helen can talk a little bit about her experience of going through the charter process. I've done it as well, but Helen, can you share with people what were probably the top tips from you in terms of approaching it? Why were you doing it? What was the value, and what would you recommend in terms of approach for attendees?
Yep, definitely. Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting me along today. Really excited to share my experience of going through the chartered route with everybody today. I've just knocked together some slides. So I'm just going to bring these up just because it helps having something on screen. It stops me going off track because I do like to talk. So first of all, I work at the NHS Business Services Authority, and I've worked here for 2 years. But before joining BSA, I've had various kind of project and programme and some assurance roles mainly within the education sector. I achieved Chartered Standard in May 23. I submitted once, was successful with that. I had one interview and I was successful with that, and I'm the first person in BSA to achieve the standard. So it's really exciting to be able to share the experience. Thank you, Jo. Thank you. I take your applause. Welcome. So I'm really, really pleased to be able to share my experience with everybody. It's something that's added massive value to me, and we can see how it fits in with the profession really well. What I'm going to talk through today is kind of why now for chartership? Why did I engage with the process? How did I do it? What did I gain from it? And some top tips for everyone on the call as well. So why was it important for me to look at chartership? It's very much the reasons that Jo's just mentioned there. So we aligned all of our job descriptions at BSA to the project delivery capability framework, where chartered standard was becoming more common with more senior roles. And I was looking at that, thinking about my personal progression, and realised that was something that was probably going to help me progress. So I started to look at it really bringing quite significant experience of developing people and teams, but not necessarily developing myself. So I wanted to use this as an opportunity to really understand kind of where I was at in terms of that journey of being able to achieve chartership. And if I was ready, brilliant. And if I wasn't, what were my gaps and what would I need to work on to be able to put a successful submission together later down the line? I was coming at this with about kind of 7 years of formal project and programme experience, so it seemed like a good time to give it a go. I went through route 3, which was the experience route, which Sophie's outlined earlier. So the only project management qualification I had at the start of opening this process was APM fundamentals. I didn't have Prince 2. I wasn't a practitioner in anything. I had APM fundamentals and a lot of experience, so I decided to give it a whirl. I started drafting my submission in October. I submitted it in the January, had my interview in March, and the results in May. So for me, the process took about 7 months end to end once I started drafting, but I did spend quite a little bit of time planning up front. So I used the APM resources again that Sophie's mentioned, using the webinars that they put on. They're really, really helpful, just talking through the standard and what's involved. So I would encourage anyone to engage with those early doors to really get a feel for what's involved with this. Also used the project matrix to help me identify which examples would be really good to help me put into my submission. I also engaged with the mentoring offer that Sophie spoke about there through the APM community. I found that to be hugely valuable. I had some really valuable conversations with individuals who'd gone through this route before. I really used that to just help kind of pull out what learnings did they have, what would they do differently, what things surprised them, just so I could kind of forewarned is forearmed for me. So I really wanted to make sure I could kind of build that into my approach as well. Also, the CPD element is really important within chartership. So whilst you're committing to going through that chartership application, you're committing to that ongoing CPD, which currently is 35 hours a year. That's a big commitment. Making sure that you're entering this process with your current CPD captured, but also an active CPD plan in place is really key. So if you are successful, fantastic. But if you're going from a standing start of then having to build up 35 hours of CPD in case you're registered, that's not the best place to be, and it's not demonstrating that continual investment in yourself as a professional. So I would encourage you to think about the planning stage. What's your CPD plan? What things have you already done, and what other things do you need to do? And run that alongside your submission as well. We'll make sure that you've got that backing behind you. The first part of the application was the written submission. I was actually most nervous about this because I felt as soon as I could talk to a human, I would be able to have that conversation and it would be okay. But the written submission for me, I found really, I was really nervous about that. I didn't know how that was going to go. Sophie mentioned there that it's very short numbers of words, and that's so important. There's really not an awful lot of wiggle room, and there's not an awful lot of wasted words you can put into there. So the purpose of this is to show how you've applied the competency criteria. It's all about you. For example, saying you had responsibility for risk management isn't enough and actually wastes some of your words. So it's like, how did you define your risk management plan? What techniques did you use for risk identification? That's what the assessors are wanting to see. So it's about you, the actions and the activities that you took, and also showing that you understand why you did that. Not just because the book says so, but like why in practice do you do that? Why do we have to use these formal approaches, and what does that benefit us? Making sure that you can allude to that in your submission is really, really key. Definitely the crafting of the submission took longer than I was anticipating. It does take quite a bit of time to get all the words down, rejig it about, and make sure that it looks and feels right and sells your experience in the best possible light. So definitely recommend spending time not just drafting, but also kind of editing and reviewing your submission as you go. It's really important. So the interview, the interview for these 2 hours, that absolutely terrified me initially. And then I thought, you know what, actually the questions they have to ask, it's not going to be very long for each answer. So if you break it down into the numbers of things you're getting assessed against, it becomes less intimidating. So that's how I got over the hump of, oh my goodness, I have to talk for 2 hours on technical things. I don't know enough words to do that. So it's really important just to not get too carried away with the length of overall time for the interview, because it goes by so quickly. Sophie's word of quickfire absolutely was my experience. I felt like I blinked and it was 2 hours and it was done. I wanted to be as prepared as possible for my interview, so I chose a date that gave me enough time so that I could be fully prepared. With the Route 3, you are being tested on what you've done, so asking more for more evidence and more kind of conversation about the things you've put in your written submission, but you're also getting tested on your technical knowledge. So it was really important for me that I built in enough time to be able to up my technical knowledge, make sure I had the right terminology in place coming into this with very little in terms of formal project management qualifications and only fundamentals from the APM route. I wanted to make sure that I was using the right terminology throughout. One of the recommendations I was given through the mentor who I linked up with and had some conversations with was to use the APM study guide for the APM project management qualification book. That was really helpful, just to help me kind of make sure I was using not BSA project management terminology, but using the right APM terms that they wanted to hear to make it really easy for the assessors to understand the examples I was giving. I spent a lot of time using the body of knowledge to help prepare for the interview. I used the study guide, as I've mentioned, and I also did some further research. There's a lot of really good project management blogs publicly available. There's lots of little clips on YouTube just for explaining things and presenting different models and approaches. For me, I wanted to come into this to kind of feel confident in the technical knowledge space by making sure I knew a couple of extra approaches, like how could I have done something differently, making sure I had that depth of experience if the assessor's wanting it. So I made sure I had maybe 2 models that I could evidence and talk through and understood to be able to bring that at the interview. I made sure I had that for each of my competencies that I'd selected on the application. But the time goes by so quickly. Towards the end, it was definitely speaking even faster than I am now to get all the information across. And a tip for this is, if you're doing your interview, please make sure that you have a little bit of time afterwards to decompress, because I was exhausted, and a glass of water, because there is a lot of talking that goes on. So make sure that you're in a comfortable setting, because it goes by so quickly. But definitely water and a little break afterwards is advisable. So what did I gain through achieving the chartered standard? You know, it's a huge personal achievement, and I'm really proud I've done that, but it's absolutely not the end. It's the commitment to the ongoing CPD that's really kind of exciting for me longer term. So it's thinking about you're making that commitment not just to achieve the standard, but to maintain it, to continue to invest in yourself and your development. It's a big undertaking and not one to be taken lightly, but I'm really looking forward to keeping myself up to date and thinking about how do I continually be on the front foot with my own development and skills to help deliver better projects safely on behalf of NHS. It's given me belief in my skills as well, especially because I went through the experience route. So I really felt like it kind of gave me that like self-belief that I am a real project manager. I know what I'm doing. That might sound silly, but for me that was massive. And within this sector, it's really exciting to be at the forefront of professionalising the profession and being able to give our profession the recognition it deserves within the healthcare sector and within public sector in general. Really want to be actively involved in helping others go through this process. So great to be on the call today and share my experience with you all. And finally, there's just a couple of top tips to share. Keep it simple on your application and on your interview. Removing acronyms, the assessors won't understand what these mean. So making sure that that the acronyms aren't important in terms of what you did. So use as plain language as you can and make it accessible. Also, I only used 2 project examples during my submission, and that worked really well for me, again, to avoid getting things confused. And depending on which examples you used for what, keep it simple, keep it as easy as you can to get the information across so that you can sell yourself in the best possible light. Plan it out. The drafting and editing took much longer than I was expecting. Also, setting aside chunks of time is really important. This isn't something you can pick up when you've got 10 minutes in between calls. It's not an end of a desk job. Once you get into it, you'll find that you get much better outputs. So setting aside some dedicated time to really get stuck into the submission and preparation for interviews is really important. And don't forget your CPD, making sure you've got a plan in place for that too is really vital. And finally, just believe in yourself. I came into this, and to some extent still do, have massive imposter syndrome when I'm speaking to other project professionals. I wanted to test myself, but I didn't think this accolade was something for people like me. It felt like my experience wasn't as valid as everyone else's, but it really is. And that for me was huge. So believing in yourself and entering this process is great. Treating it as a learning experience. Yeah, you might achieve the standard and that's a great outcome, but equally you might just get clarity over some areas of development to focus on to help you come forwards and go through it more successfully the next time. That's still a great outcome as well. So definitely believe in yourself, give it a whirl. What's the worst that could happen? But it's a big undertaking, but it's really exciting, and it's great to be talking about this and trying to get the profession the recognition it deserves within the healthcare sector as well. So thank you for allowing me a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of my experience. Appreciate we've run over time a little bit. I'm going to pass back to Sophie just to do a quick overview of the fellowship piece as well.
I'm not sure we've got time to cover that, but maybe we can do that on another day, and maybe we'll do a specific one on that. I have put in the chat if people are interested in a particular session on actually kind of planning or going through the application process in more detail, stick a thumbs up next to that query in the chat, and we will look to see if there's sufficient interest to put something in place. There are a couple of questions which I would like to tackle, and Sophie will make sure we get the fellowship element in another day. So in terms of kind of quick questions, there's one for you, Helen, here from somebody in the chat asking whether or not you funded yourself or were you supported with funding to go through the chartership process?
No, I was supported with funding, so I had to do a business case within HPCA to secure some funding for it. And where it is, especially for the Route 3, it's the highest of all of the routes, but it was something that you can easily make a business case for. So I would absolutely be kind of encouraging you to explore those routes rather than immediately going to self-funding. At least have that conversation. If the worst that could happen is they say no.
No, I think it's a really great point. And any organisation that's showing genuine investment should consider this seriously as supporting its development of workforce capability. There's a supplementary question from Helen that says, what value do you get from it in both your personal and professional life?
Oh, massive amounts. I think for me, it's the whole that is attached to me as Helen. I brought experience in with my current role within BSA, but the other example I spoke about was a contract role I did with the Ministry of Justice before joining BSA. So it's my experience that got this standard, and I feel it's something that I'll carry forward. And absolutely, I use it to help kind of wave the flag for the profession and be able to kind of showcase what we do. But fundamentally, it's for you as an individual. The projects are really important in terms of they have to meet the desired complexity criteria for APM, but really it's what you did as an individual, and that's like the whole thing is about you. We happen to work within the healthcare sector, which is brilliant, but it's about us as individuals. So absolutely, if you're committed to the profession and you want to make that ongoing commitment to yourself, it's absolutely worthwhile doing.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Helen. We have a couple of other questions, but what we'll do is we'll feed those back afterwards so that people can get them in the information that's sent out as a follow-up. We will be sending out the link to the recording. Thank you so much, Helen. Those insights have been really helpful for people to understand. And I've asked if anybody's interested in perhaps going through the process. Would you be willing to come on a call with us and go through it with some folks on a lunchtime, maybe sometime?
Of course, absolutely. Yeah. It's something that I didn't greatly understand, so more than happy to share my experience and take some questions. I got real benefit from that. So yeah, whenever and wherever, sign me up.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's absolutely awesome. And just on that point of getting CPD, we've got so many resources to support with that. I have put the link in the chat, but the real premium one, and it's the one you want to get signed up to fast, everybody, is our annual conference. It's going to be the first of our annual conferences. So you want to have the opportunity to say you were there in the first one. We're having a drinks reception to celebrate the development and launch of the HPCA, and we've got some fantastic speakers. So we've got Mark Hepworth, Deputy CEO of the Association for Project Management, coming and talking about the development of the profession and the direction of travel for it. Melanie Franklin, who is a change expert and used to be the chair of the Change Management Institute. She's coming and talking about the change management side and things in that direction. We have Eileen Rodden from the House of PMO. So any of you working in PMO roles or wanting to support development of PMO in your organisation, fantastic stuff from them, who are leaders in this space. And we also have Kay Sanders from CITI coming to talk about the change mindset and what we need to do to help the profession to develop and evolve in the challenging sector that we work in at the moment. So do get signed up for the conference. It's a fabulous opportunity for all of us to actually come together, set the direction of travel, but also share and network and collaborate in a really meaningful way. So thank you all for joining us. Sorry, we've run over a little bit. Sophie, was there anything else you wanted to add before we round off this particular session?
No, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate there's a lot of information to put into that session. So yeah, apologies for that. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we will definitely do more on this subject, because this is really a direction of travel that I think is very important for us within this sector. We need to build the capability, build the professionalism, be amongst our peers as chartered professionals, and really fly the flag for capability development in the healthcare sector. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Sophie. And thank you all for joining us today. It's been fantastic to have you with us. And this is the last of the series. So thank you, Sophie, for doing those 4 sessions for us. You can catch them all on demand if you missed any and wanted to go through the journey again, or to go back and look at the details. And hopefully we will see you at the conference, but keep an eye out for the next set of events that we will have running. Again, add them to your CPD activity and look out for those skills that you need to develop. Thank you all. Have a fantastic rest of the day. See you next time.